They were the faces that stopped time, the women every man dreamed of and every woman wanted to be. In the 1970s, they ruled Hollywood, lit up screens, and defined beauty for a generation. But decades have passed and time never plays fair. Some aged gracefully, some changed beyond recognition, and some are no longer with us. So what really happened to these iconic stars? Their transformations might shock you. Catherine Bach, the Daisy Duke who changed everything. Before social media, before influencers, before viral fashion trends, there was Catherine Bach, and she didn't just play a role, she created a cultural explosion. When she stepped onto the screen as Daisy Duke in the Dukes of Hazzard, America wasn't ready for what hit them. Those iconic denim shorts, they became a global sensation overnight, copied, imitated, and forever renamed after her. But Catherine wasn't just a pretty face in short shorts. Behind that effortless charm was a woman who redefined what it meant to be bold, confident, and unforgettable on television. While millions tuned in for the action, it was her presence that kept eyes glued to the screen. Then time moved on. The spotlight shifted, trends faded, and the girl who once ruled primetime slowly stepped away from the chaos of fame. But here's the twist. Catherine Bach never truly disappeared. She evolved. From Hollywood icon to a more private, grounded life, she proved that real beauty isn't just about youth, it's about presence, legacy, and impact. Today, she may look different, older, wiser, quieter, but one thing hasn't changed: the undeniable aura of a woman who once stopped an entire era in its tracks. And once you've seen Daisy Duke, you never really forget her. Cher, the woman who refused to age. If there's one name that completely defies time, it's Cher. Long before reinvention became a trend, she was already mastering it. In the 1970s, she wasn't just famous, she was everywhere. Music, television, fashion, she dominated it all with a presence that felt larger than life. With her striking looks, fearless style, and unmistakable voice, Cher didn't follow trends, she created them. Week after week, millions tuned in just to watch her, not knowing what she'd wear or say next. And that unpredictability, that was her power. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. While so many stars from her era slowly faded into memory, Cher did the impossible: she stayed relevant. Decade after decade, she kept evolving, shocking audiences, topping charts, and proving that age was nothing more than a number she refused to obey. And today, it's almost unreal. She looks like she's barely changed, still commanding stages, still turning heads, still carrying that same electrifying energy that made her a legend in the first place. But behind that timeless image is something even more powerful: a woman who refused to be defined, limited, or forgotten. Cher didn't just survive the decades, she conquered them. Jane Seymour, the Bond girl who became timeless grace. Before elegance had a face, before sophistication had a name, there was Jane Seymour. When she appeared as a Bond girl in Live and Let Die, the world didn't just notice her, it was completely captivated. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but there was something far more dangerous about her, a quiet, magnetic allure that pulled you in without warning. In an era filled with bold personalities and rising stars, Jane stood apart. She carried herself with a rare kind of grace, blending beauty with intelligence in a way that felt almost effortless. Audiences didn't just watch her, they felt her presence. And Hollywood quickly realized she was far more than just a Bond girl. But what makes her story truly compelling isn't where she started, it's how she endured. As the years passed and the industry changed, many faces faded into the background. Jane Seymour did the opposite. She adapted, evolved, and continued to shine, not by chasing trends, but by staying true to who she was. Actress, author, humanitarian, she built a legacy that went far beyond the screen. And today, there's something almost unbelievable about her. She still carries that same radiant charm, that same soft yet powerful presence that first captured the world decades ago. Time may have added years, but it never took away her essence. Because Jane Seymour was never just a moment in Hollywood history. She is what timeless truly looks like. Sybil Shepherd, the beauty who turned fame into power. Before Hollywood knew how to build stars, Sybil Shepherd walked in and became one naturally. Discovered as a teenage model, her face didn't just land on magazine covers, it defined them. There was something undeniably striking about her, a mix of innocence and confidence that made people stop and stare. And then came the turning point. When she stepped into film with The Last Picture Show, everything changed. Critics paid attention, audiences leaned in. Sybil wasn't just another beautiful face trying to act, she had depth, presence, and a quiet intensity that made every scene feel real. But fame is never simple. As the years passed, her journey through Hollywood wasn't always smooth. Roles came and went, expectations shifted, and the spotlight didn't always shine as brightly. Yet instead of fading away, Sybil did something far more powerful. She adapted. Television gave her a second wave, and she took it, reinventing herself, proving she wasn't tied to one era, one image, or one version of success. And today, when people look back, they don't just see a model or an actress. They see a woman who refused to be boxed in, who turned early beauty into lasting influence, and who proved that real staying power in Hollywood doesn't come from perfection. It comes from resilience. Suzanne Somers, the smile that hid a steel will. At first glance, Suzanne Somers looked like the perfect all-American dream, bright smile, effortless charm, and a warmth that instantly made audiences fall in love. When she starred in Three's Company, she didn't just play Chrissy Snow, she became one of the most recognizable faces on television almost overnight. But behind that bubbly persona was something far more powerful. Suzanne wasn't just there to entertain, she knew her worth. And when she decided to stand up for equal pay at the height of her fame, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. The result? She was pushed out, her career suddenly derailed in a way that would have ended most stars, but not her. Instead of disappearing, Suzanne Somers rewrote the rules. She built an empire outside of traditional Hollywood, author, entrepreneur, wellness advocate. From best-selling books to becoming the face of fitness and lifestyle products, she turned rejection into reinvention. And that's what makes her story unforgettable. Because while the industry tried to silence her, she found a louder voice on her own terms. Years later, she remained a symbol of resilience, proving that success doesn't always come from staying in the spotlight. Sometimes it comes from walking away and building something even bigger. Suzanne Somers didn't just survive fame. She outgrew it. Debbie Harry, the punk queen who broke every rule. Before Rebellion had a soundtrack, before Attitude had a face, there was Debbie Harry. As the frontwoman of Blondie, she didn't just enter the music scene, she tore straight through it. With platinum blonde hair, icy confidence, and a voice that could shift from sweet to dangerous in a heartbeat, she became the defining image of punk and new wave. But Debbie wasn't just style, she was substance. At a time when the industry tried to box women into predictable roles, she refused to be controlled. She blurred lines between music, fashion, and art, creating a persona that felt raw, fearless, and completely original. Every performance carried an edge, like anything could happen, and that unpredictability made her impossible to ignore. And then came the evolution. While many artists burned bright and disappeared, Debbie Harry endured. She moved through decades of change, collaborations, film appearances, and reinventions without ever losing that rebellious core. Even as trends shifted, she stayed authentic, never chasing relevance, yet never losing it either. Today, there's still something electric about her presence. She may not be the same wild force from the 70s, but the spirit is still there, sharper, deeper, and earned through time. Because Debbie Harry was never just a singer or a style icon, she was a movement. Jaclyn Smith, the angel who turned fame into legacy. When Charlie's Angels exploded onto television screens, it didn't just create stars, it created legends. And right at the center of it all was Jaclyn Smith. With her soft beauty, calm confidence, and undeniable screen presence, she became the angel audiences trusted, admired, and couldn't look away from. But what made Jaclyn different wasn't just how she looked, it was how she carried herself. In a show built on glamour and action, she brought something deeper, a quiet strength that made her feel real. While others chased attention, Jaclyn drew people in effortlessly. She didn't need to be loud to be unforgettable. And when the spotlight of the 70s began to fade, her story didn't end. it transformed. Instead of clinging to past fame, Jaclyn Smith made a move that changed everything. She stepped beyond acting and built her own brand long before it became the norm. Fashion lifestyle business, she turned her name into something lasting, something bigger than television. That's the twist most people don't expect. While many icons are remembered for who they once were, Jaclyn redefined what it means to endure. She became a pioneer, showing that real power isn't just in being seen, it's in building something that survives long after the cameras stop rolling. But here's the real question. Was she the most unforgettable angel of them all, or do you think someone else deserved that crown? Morgan Fairchild, the glamour icon, who refused to fade. In an era overflowing with beauty, Morgan Fairchild didn't just stand out, she defined glamour. With her flawless features, golden hair, and unmistakable elegance, she became the kind of woman Hollywood couldn't stop casting and audiences couldn't stop watching. Her rise wasn't overnight, but once it happened, it was unstoppable. From daytime dramas to primetime television, Morgan mastered the art of presence. Whether she played the sophisticated socialite or the powerful, untouchable woman, she owned every scene with a confidence that felt almost untouchable. She wasn't just acting, she was commanding attention. But here's what makes her story even more intriguing. While many stars from her era slowly disappeared as trends changed, Morgan Fairchild stayed in the game. She adapted, evolved, and kept showing up in new roles, new shows, and even modern television, proving she was never just a product of the 70s. And today, there's still something striking about her. Time may have softened the spotlight, but it never erased her aura. She remains a symbol of classic Hollywood beauty mixed with resilience, a reminder that true icons don't vanish, they reinvent. Because Morgan Fairchild wasn't just part of an era, she outlived it. Mary Tyler Moore, the woman who changed television forever. Before strong independent women became the standard on television, there was Mary Tyler Moore, and she didn't just play the role, she redefined it. At a time when female characters were often written as side pieces to someone else's story, Mary stepped forward and became the story. With The Mary Tyler Moore Show, she brought something revolutionary to the screen. A woman who was single, ambitious, and unapologetically chasing her own life. No fairy tale, no rescue, just determination, humor, and heart. And audiences didn't just watch, they connected. But her impact went far beyond entertainment. Mary wasn't just making people laugh, she was quietly reshaping how society saw women. Week after week, she proved that strength could be soft, independence could be relatable, and success didn't need permission. And then came the years that followed. While many stars are remembered for a moment, Mary Tyler Moore became something much bigger, a symbol. Even as time passed and her presence on screen became less frequent, her influence never faded. The doors she opened, they stayed open for generations. Today, her legacy feels almost untouchable. Because she didn't just shine in her time, she changed what was possible after it. Mary Tyler Moore wasn't just a television star, she was a turning point. Barbi Benton, the Playboy star who played the game her way. At just 18 years old, Barbi Benton stepped into a world most people could only dream of and instantly became one of its brightest stars. As a regular on Playboy After Dark and a multiple-time magazine cover icon, she wasn't just part of the spotlight, she was the spotlight. But what made Barbi truly fascinating wasn't just her beauty. In an era where many women were defined by how they looked, Barbi Benton quietly built something more. She moved beyond modeling and stepped into music, television, and film, proving she had far more to offer than a camera-ready face. And surprisingly, she succeeded. With chart-topping songs and appearances across major shows, she carved out a career that many didn't see coming. Yet just as her fame reached its peak, she made a choice that shocked everyone. She stepped away. While others chased the spotlight for as long as they could, Barbi Benton walked in the opposite direction, choosing privacy, family, and a life far from Hollywood's chaos. No scandals, no desperate comebacks, just a quiet exit that made her even more mysterious. And that's what keeps people talking. Because in a world obsessed with attention, she chose to disappear on her own terms. Barbi Benton wasn't pushed out. She walked away while still on top. Stevie Nicks, the enchanting voice that defined a generation. Some artists perform and some cast a spell. Stevie Nicks did both. When she joined Fleetwood Mac in the mid-70s, something shifted instantly. The music changed, the energy deepened, and suddenly there was this mysterious woman on stage, lace-flowing, voice-haunting eyes full of stories you couldn't quite decode. She didn't just sing songs she felt like one. But Stevie wasn't built for simplicity. Behind that ethereal image was a woman navigating chaos, fame, love, heartbreak, and creative battles that nearly tore everything apart. And yet from that storm came some of the most unforgettable music ever written. Songs that didn't just climb charts, they stayed in people's souls. And when Fleetwood Mac fractured, she didn't fade. She rose. Her solo career proved something undeniable. Stevie Nicks wasn't just part of a legendary band, she was a legend on her own. Album after album, stage after stage, she carried that same hypnotic presence that made the world stop and listen. Even today, there's something almost otherworldly about her. Older, yes, but diminished, not even close. Because Stevie Nicks never followed trends, she became timeless. Cybill Shepherd, the star who refused to be defined. Before Hollywood could label her, Cybill Shepherd had already broken the mold. Discovered as a teenage model, her beauty didn't just turn heads, it opened doors most could only dream of. Magazine covers, flashing cameras, instant attention, she had it all. But Cybill wasn't interested in being remembered as just a face. Her real moment came when she stepped into film with The Last Picture Show. Suddenly, everything changed. Critics took her seriously. Audiences saw something deeper. There was a quiet intensity in her performance, a sense that she was capable of far more than anyone expected. And just like that, she crossed the line from model to actress, something many tried but few truly achieved. But fame doesn't always follow a straight path. There were highs, there were setbacks, and moments when it seemed like Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with her. Yet Cybill Shepherd never disappeared. She adapted, shifted, and found new life on television, proving she wasn't tied to one version of success. Because in the end, Cybill didn't just survive the industry, she kept rewriting her place in it. Was she underrated by Hollywood, or did she never fully reach the level her talent promised? Dolly Parton, the blonde bombshell with a brilliant mind. At first glance, Dolly Parton looked like a walking stereotype, big hair, bright smile, and a voice dripping with country charm. But under that glittering image was something most people didn't expect: a sharp, strategic mind that would turn her into one of the most powerful women in entertainment. She didn't just sing songs, she told stories. When Jolene hit the airwaves, it wasn't just a success, it became a cultural moment. Her voice carried heartbreak, strength, and vulnerability all at once, connecting with millions in a way that felt deeply personal. And while others came and went, Dolly kept building hit after hit, quietly cementing herself as a force that couldn't be ignored. But here's where it gets even more impressive. Dolly Parton didn't stop at music. She expanded into film, business, philanthropy, creating an empire that went far beyond the stage. Theme parks, books, charities, she turned fame into something meaningful, something lasting. And through it all, she stayed exactly who she was: unapologetic, witty, and completely in control of her image. Even today, she feels larger than life. Not because she never changed, but because she understood how to evolve without losing herself. Dolly Parton isn't just a country star, she's a phenomenon. Faye Dunaway, the perfectionist who burned too bright, some stars rise fast. Faye Dunaway exploded. When she broke through with Bonnie and Clyde, Hollywood didn't just notice her, it shifted around her. There was something intense, almost dangerous in her presence. Sharp features, piercing eyes, and a performance style that felt raw and unpredictable. She wasn't trying to be liked, she was impossible to ignore. And that intensity became her signature. Throughout the 1970s, Faye delivered one powerful role after another, proving she wasn't just part of the new Hollywood movement, she was leading it. Awards followed, critical acclaim followed. But so did something else: pressure. Because when you chase perfection the way she did, it doesn't come without a cost. Behind the scenes, stories began to surface. Difficult, demanding, uncompromising. And maybe they were true. But here's the real question: was she difficult, or was she simply unwilling to lower her standards in an industry that often expected women to? As the years passed, the spotlight dimmed, but her legacy never did. Because Faye Dunaway didn't just act, she consumed every role she touched. Kirstie Alley, the star who rose fast and fought harder. Kirstie Alley didn't ease her way into fame, she stormed into it. When she stepped into Cheers as Rebecca Howe, she had the impossible task of filling shoes audiences weren't ready to let go of. But somehow, she didn't just survive the comparison, she made the role entirely her own. Sharp, funny, unpredictable, she brought a new energy that turned her into a household name almost overnight. And just like that, she was everywhere. Awards followed, recognition followed. Leading roles came one after another, proving she wasn't just a sitcom replacement, she was a star in her own right. But what made Kirstie different wasn't just her talent, it was her honesty. She never tried to hide her struggles, her battles, or the pressure that came with fame. She lived it all in the public eye, unfiltered and unapologetic. But that kind of visibility comes with a price. Over the years, her life became as talked about as her career. Highs, lows, controversies, comebacks, she experienced all of it under constant scrutiny, and yet through everything, she never fully disappeared. She kept returning, reminding people of the charisma that made them love her in the first place. Because Kirstie Alley wasn't just a success story, she was a fighter. Linda Ronstadt, the voice that could do everything. Linda Ronstadt didn't just have a great voice, she had every voice. At a time when most artists stayed in one lane, she moved effortlessly between rock, country, pop, and even opera, proving that real talent doesn't need boundaries. In the 1970s, she wasn't just successful, she was dominant, becoming one of the best-selling female artists of her era, and the reason was simple. When Linda sang, people felt it. Her voice carried power, heartbreak, fire, and vulnerability all at once. Whether it was a soft ballad or a full-force rock anthem, she made every song sound like it belonged to her. Hit after hit, album after album, she built a legacy that few could match and even fewer could challenge. But then came something no one expected. At the height of her legendary career, Linda Ronstadt was forced to step away from music due to Parkinson's disease. The very voice that defined her, that connected her to millions, slowly faded. For most artists, that would be the end of their story. But not hers, because Linda's impact was already untouchable. She didn't need to keep singing to remain a legend, she had already changed the standard of what a female artist could be. Fearless, versatile, and completely authentic. Farrah Fawcett, the smile that defined an era. Farrah Fawcett wasn't just famous, she was unforgettable. With her iconic hair, radiant smile, and that legendary red swimsuit poster, she became the face of an entire generation. In the 1970s, she wasn't just part of pop culture, she defined it. Everywhere you looked, there she was. But Farrah wanted more than admiration. At the peak of her fame, she made a risky move, walking away from Charlie's Angels to prove she was more than just a symbol of beauty. It was a decision that shocked the world. Some doubted her. Some thought she made a mistake. But Farrah wasn't chasing comfort, she was chasing respect. And slowly, she earned it. Through more serious roles and raw performances, she showed a depth that many never expected. She wasn't just a poster on a wall, she was a woman with something real to say. And in the end, that's what people remember most. Not just the beauty, but the strength. Sally Field, the underrated force who demanded to be seen. Sally Field didn't start as the kind of actress critics took seriously, and that's exactly what makes her story so powerful. In the early days, she was known for light, cheerful television roles, the kind that made audiences smile but rarely earned respect. To many, she was easy to watch but easy to overlook. But Sally wasn't willing to stay in that box. Determined to prove she was more than what people expected, she made a bold shift, stepping into deeper, more demanding roles that forced Hollywood to see her differently. And when she did, everything changed. The performances became sharper, the emotions more raw, and suddenly the industry had no choice but to pay attention. Then came the moment that defined it all. Awards, recognition, validation. But more importantly, respect. Sally Field didn't just transform her career, she redefined her identity as an actress. She showed that talent isn't always about where you start, it's about how far you're willing to push yourself to be seen for who you truly are. And even today, there's something incredibly real about her. No pretense, no illusion, just honesty. Because Sally Field never chased perfection. She chased truth. Raquel Welch, the icon who redefined desire. Before Hollywood understood the power of image, Raquel Welch became the image. When she appeared in 1,000,000 Years BC wearing that now legendary deerskin bikini, it wasn't just a scene, it was a moment that changed everything. Overnight, she became the definition of beauty, desire, and cinematic allure. But Raquel Welch was never just a symbol. Behind that stunning exterior was a woman determined to be taken seriously in an industry that often reduced her to looks alone. She fought for roles with substance pushed beyond expectations and refused to let her image define the limits of her talent. And while Hollywood sometimes struggled to see past her beauty, audiences knew there was more. That's what made her different. She carried herself with intelligence, discipline, and control qualities that kept her relevant long after many others faded. Decade after decade, she remained a presence not just admired but respected. And even as time moved forward, one thing never changed: her aura. Because Raquel Welch didn't just represent an era, she owned it. Goldie Hawn, the joyful star who turned laughter into legacy. Goldie Hawn didn't just light up the screen, she lit up the room. In the 1970s, while many actresses leaned into glamour or intensity, Goldie brought something completely different: pure joy. With her bubbly personality, sparkling eyes, and natural comedic timing, she made audiences feel good in a way that was impossible to fake. But don't let that charm fool you. Behind the laughter was a sharp, instinctive performer who knew exactly what she was doing. From her breakthrough in Cactus Flower, which earned her an Academy Award, to a string of successful films, Goldie proved that comedy wasn't just entertaining, it was powerful. She had the rare ability to make people laugh while still holding their full attention. And then something interesting happened. Instead of chasing fame endlessly, Goldie began to shift her focus. Acting became more selective. Producing, creating, and eventually giving back took center stage. She built a life beyond Hollywood, one rooted in purpose, family, and impact. And today, her energy still feels the same: warm, bright, effortlessly alive. Because Goldie Hawn was never just a star, she was a feeling. Was her lighthearted image the secret to her success, or did it make people underestimate just how talented she really was? Catherine Bach, the Daisy Duke who changed everything. Before social media, before influencers, before viral fashion trends, there was Catherine Bach, and she didn't just play a role, she created a cultural explosion. When she stepped onto the screen as Daisy Duke in the Dukes of Hazzard, America wasn't ready for what hit them. Those iconic denim shorts, they became a global sensation overnight, copied, imitated, and forever renamed after her. But Catherine wasn't just a pretty face in short shorts. Behind that effortless charm was a woman who redefined what it meant to be bold, confident, and unforgettable on television. While millions tuned in for the action, it was her presence that kept eyes glued to the screen. Then time moved on. The spotlight shifted, trends faded, and the girl who once ruled primetime slowly stepped away from the chaos of fame. But here's the twist: Catherine Bach never truly disappeared. She evolved. From Hollywood icon to a more private, grounded life, she proved that real beauty isn't just about youth, it's about presence, legacy, and impact. Today, she may look different, older, wiser, quieter, but one thing hasn't changed: the undeniable aura of a woman who once stopped an entire era in its tracks. And once you've seen Daisy Duke, you never really forget her. Cher, the woman who refused to age. If there's one name that completely defies time, it's Cher. Long before reinvention became a trend, she was already mastering it. In the 1970s, she wasn't just famous, she was everywhere. Music, television, fashion, she dominated it all with a presence that felt larger than life. With her striking looks, fearless style, and unmistakable voice, Cher didn't follow trends, she created them. Week after week, millions tuned in just to watch her not knowing what she'd wear or say next. And that unpredictability, that was her power. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. While so many stars from her era slowly faded into memory, Cher did the impossible. She stayed relevant. Decade after decade, she kept evolving, shocking audiences, topping charts, and proving that age was nothing more than a number she refused to obey. And today, it's almost unreal. She looks like she's barely changed, still commanding stages, still turning heads, still carrying that same electrifying energy that made her a legend in the first place. But behind that timeless image is something even more powerful, a woman who refused to be defined, limited, or forgotten. Cher didn't just survive the decades, she conquered them.